People should start rolling in soon.
Tell them, hey, come and join.
Hey, exactly. Come on in. Come on in.
Join the party.
Yes, we have our wine here. There we go. Rolling in, rolling in.
We got hers. Who's
You
ready?
see, we're
Ready.
ready. Oh, Lynnette,
I haven't started early. Don't worry.
I know, right? Did you? It's after, they always say it's after 5 somewhere. It actually is after 5. Is it? What time is it there? 7.
7 o'clock. Yep.
7 o'clock. Lynnette is joining us from Texas. I don't know what that accent was, but Texas. I'm here in Atlanta. Thank you all for coming in, joining us here. I'm so excited to have Lynnette here with us, Lynnette Khalfani-Cox, Miss Lynnette Khalfani-Cox. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. I was looking forward to this. So
Yes, you were looking forward to some wine. You weren't looking here, raising a glass to you for being always saying yes and being
wine and wealth. Why
such
not?
such an amazing resource. Little sip, little sip. All right, everyone, grab your wine, but don't get too tipsy because Lynnette has some money tips for us. That's why I'm lightly sipping tonight. I need to be focused because we all know with everything going on, we're a lot of us thinking about our money, how we should be managing it differently, if in any way. That's going to be one of my questions for Lynnette. And also about that wine is so sweet, and also about all the resources that are available out there. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm happy to see it, but I'm also kind of confused by it. So hopefully you can help us sort through, and it changes every day. I mean, I was looking at some of the things here in Atlanta, and they literally said in the write-up about it, we're still developing this program, but here's how you apply. So everybody's caught, I think, sort of back on their heels, but I'm happy that you're here to help us sort through it. So I want to give an introduction of Lynnette to everyone, and then we're going to jump right in. If you have any questions as we're going through I'll ask some early questions, then let you all ask, but make sure to go ahead and drop it in the Q&A section. So put any question you want in there, only Lynnette and I can see it, and then we'll share the answers to those questions. All right, so Lynnette Khalfani-Cox, the Money Coach, is a personal finance expert, speaker, and author of 15 money management books, including the New York Times bestseller, Zero Debt, The Ultimate Guide to Financial Freedom. Lynnette has been seen on more than 1,000 TV segments nationwide, including television appearances on Oprah, Dr. Phil, The Dr. Oz Show, Steve Harvey Show, Good Morning America, The Today Show, and many more. A former financial news journalist, Lynnette now co-owns the MoneyCoach.net LLC, a financial education company that she runs with her husband, Earl Cox. Together, they offer financial education, consulting services, courses, and workshops. And they are always so wonderful and generous and willing to work with me. We've known each other, I think, over 10 years now, right?
10 plus years, yeah.
10 plus years. So again, I'm so happy to have you here. Let's jump into these questions. All right, so the first one, Lynnette, what should we be doing differently, if anything, with our finances now? And I asked this one because some people you see saying on TV, they say move your money to cash. That's if you have the cash, right? Move all your money to cash. Other people say invest in the market. What are your thoughts on this?
So it's a great question. And really, there's no sort of one size fits all answer, if I'm honest, because clearly everybody is in a different economic place and space.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I would kind of think about it in 3 different categories. If you're just kind of, barely getting by or struggling to survive, or if your income has been severely impacted, maybe you've gone through job loss, or you've been furloughed, you've had your hours cut, or your pay has been cut, that kind of thing, or you really just didn't have a lot of savings already, then you need to kind of stabilize things, right? You're like, let me go into survival mode. And for those folks, I think it's about a couple of things. One is reassessing your overall finances. I know nobody likes the B word, budget.
Right, right. The other B word, right.
The other B word, okay? But nobody, they feel like, they almost feel like they're in a financial straitjacket. If you say, are you budgeting? Are you keeping your expenses underneath your actual income? And people go, oh, yeah. I kind of look at it, but they don't really live according to a budget. Well, little Miss Rona, she done reared her ugly head and made it so that we all need to be watching our dollars and making sure that in these tough economic times that your outgo is not exceeding your inflow. So you really do want to take a look at your overall spending and make sure that you cut back as much as possible if you're already kind of struggling to get by. And frankly, Elayne, we know that even before COVID-19 hit, the average American didn't have $400 in savings. So if we're honest and if we're realistic in looking at the kind of financial picture, a lot of folks were in that paycheck to paycheck cycle and were, kind of struggling to keep above water and stay afloat even before coronavirus. So you do need to start prioritizing. You need to look at things like housing first and foremost. Clearly, you don't want to be left out on the street, during this pandemic, you want to maintain the roof over your head. If you can't afford to pay your bills, you want to be in mode where you're negotiating very strongly, very actively with various creditors. Your auto loan, your student loan, if you have private student loans, if you have federal student loans, you already get a reprieve, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. But whether it's, the mortgage or the housing, the rent that you can't pay, whether it's a utility bill, you can pick up the phone right now and work a deal. Most creditors and most organizations, utility companies, etc., they're helping those in crisis. They're helping those who feel like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because I can't even keep it together here. So I want to help those folks to feel a little sense of control and to not panic and not be like totally stressed out and thinking, I'm not going to survive this. Yes, you will. You will survive and get through this. The number one thing is to maintain the health, stay home, keep it locked down.
Right.
We don't want the public health crisis to magnify the financial crisis, right? So that's the first part for people who are just kind of like, wow, this is rough. I can't even make it. Then you have people who are fairly stable, who are doing, quite kind of decent. They have not been impacted in terms of being one of the 22 million people who just got a pink slip over the last, month and, had to file for unemployment benefits in the last month since Trump declared coronavirus a national disaster. They actually have maintained their same income. And they may even be saying more like, is there something I should be doing to like improve or stabilize in a way that makes sense so that I can come out on the other side stronger post COVID-19? And for those people, and there are, there's a good chunk of folks out there in that category. I think for them, you do want to be thinking about investing strategies. You certainly want to be looking at, am I developing additional streams of income? Are there ways in which I can take it up a notch financially? And so you want to be a little more proactive with your finances. And again, we can get a little bit more into investing and stuff like that. And then finally, there's folks, the smaller tier, but certainly a group of people who are not only stable, not only still doing just fine and have their income still in place, thank the Lord Almighty, but they've actually been in a position to look at crisis and see opportunity and to say, wow, okay, I, had a really healthy amount of savings. I, was consistently putting away cash for an emergency or a rainy day. I was actively and, constantly putting away money in my 401k or my IRA, et cetera. Or I was already in the middle of about to do something, like I was about to make a real estate purchase. I was about to buy rental property. I was about to become a home buyer. And then those folks are kind of assessing, does this still make sense for me? And can I be opportunistic in a positive way, not in a way to take advantage of folks or not in a way to be negative, but in a way to get ahead in a very big way and make what I call power money moves to propel them so that whereas others are seeing fear and scarcity and, not so much opportunity, those folks are seeing, wow, I see abundance. I see a way for me to, get stocks on sale if they're into investing. I see a way for me to say, wow, I was looking at real estate and yep, real estate sales are down because there's not a lot of real estate open houses being held. The National Association of Realtors says that sales are down about 60% from a year ago. And so the opportunistic potential investor is saying, that's opportunity because there's less competition for me. So should I still go through with this real estate purchase or, something to that effect? So I think you kind of have to really say, where am I? Am I just kind of struggling to get by? Am I solid and kind of okay? Or am I in a healthier financial position and I can afford to be opportunistic and really propel myself to come out of this crisis a lot stronger than I was before?
That's excellent, Lynnette. I love that. And I love that starting from that place of, well, like you said, don't panic, even though, I think that first week we're all like, what is happening? At least I know I was, what is happening? And it's like, right? Like, what is this real?
Yeah, I know. I literally cried the first week. I had a serious meltdown. I woke up one morning. It was on a Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was the very first week. I woke up the next day and everything, the weight of it just hit me. I was falling. I was just crying. And then Earl was like, baby, what's wrong?
He's like, it's going to be okay.
He's going to be okay. And then I was like, I'm not worried about us, all the people.
Oh, that speaks to that speaks to who you are. Absolutely. That speaks to who you are.
I think I just kind of panicked. I looked ahead and I just saw like, wow, what if it gets really bad? And I let my mind go there because again, I know from 17 years of having my own business and helping folks, with their money issues, I know how precarious it already really is for a lot of people. And honestly, we're privileged. We're blessed because we have more than most. And in general, Americans, we have more than most. I mean, sometimes it sounds crazy for people to hear this, but if you make $25,000, $35,000, that is in like the top 10% of income globally,
right,
across the world. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we think you got to be making $50,000, $100,000, $300,000. You want to be a 1%er within America. Yeah, that's a whole different story. But certainly all around the globe, you look at many, many other countries, folks are making, $50 a month, $300 a month. I mean, it's almost shocking to us to think that in many parts of the world, people live on far less. And so, we do have to kind of put it in perspective. Sometimes when I say stuff like that to Earl, he'll be, if he ever complains about money, and we have sometimes what we call the seesaw, where we'll both look at our own financial standing and say, oh, we should be here. We should be doing more. We should have this or that, right? And mostly it's about savings because we like to put away some cash, Mm-hmm. And sometimes if he says, oh, we should have more, I'll say, but look at this account, look at that or whatever. And then I'll say, and compared to other people, and I'll start dropping numbers. He'll go, that doesn't help me, Lynnette.
Right. He's like, we're in America and this is what we need. But I think
real. He'll say either that doesn't help me, or he'll say he's reminding me about the emotional aspects of money.
Right.
And it's not just the dollars and cents. And that people need to feel the security no matter what level. Somebody might say, oh my God, I only have $500 in the bank. And somebody might say, oh my God, I only have $50,000 in the bank. Somebody else might say, oh my God, we're down to $500,000 in the bank. And it's all relative, and it's all their emotional issues, and what they're feeling is real and valid for them given their situation and their circumstances. So I try to be mindful of that, but I do try to just overall keep it in context as well.
Yes. And I think the way you broke it down for us, think the three different places or three different, not levels, I'll say three different stages that people might be in, right? And so starting with a couple of things I just wrote down here, some notes. One of the things you talked about was negotiating with your creditors. One of the things I heard, I can't remember, it's probably on a podcast because I listen to so many podcasts on that. So one of the things I heard someone say is that when you do call your creditors, your landlord, or whoever it is, that you should make sure to say that I have been affected by or impacted by the coronavirus, COVID-19 or something like that. Or some companies, maybe they can't say to you, oh, was this the problem? And this is why I will help you. So I don't know if that's true or not, but just, do you think that's good advice for people to be forward and say, I have been impacted by coronavirus, because if you just call trying to negotiate, I think there might be some rules there with language that other people that I heard on this podcast, I can't remember, said they encountered.
So that's a good point that somebody might have made. I'm not aware that, and it may be the case, but personally, I'm not aware that a company can't say that language or use that language with you. And I'm going to ask you a quick little second here to pause 1 second while I shift. Earl, help. Bringing him in here for a second. Nothing, I was just going to ask you if you can help me and make an adjustment. The light, if you could just kill the light. Yeah.
It's too bright.
Yeah. And hopefully I know I'm not supposed to be touching my face. I'm sorry.
I know. And it's the wine. The wine got you all.
I get it.
I'll drink to that.
Okay. Is it still okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully. Okay. Okay. But
we love seeing you, but we're getting all this information from you. I'm writing stuff down that you say.
I'm really just kind of keeping it real here, but I don't want to pass out on y'all here.
Right.
So I wasn't aware if some organizations, creditors, lenders, et cetera, are not allowed, quote unquote, to say that kind of thing. But yes, I do think it's appropriate and relevant to be specific in your request and to let them know that you've been affected by coronavirus or COVID-19. Frankly, I actually got some information from a woman who was a former representative at CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. She now actually works for a law firm where she represents lenders and creditors, et cetera. I wrote about this on my site, on my blog, on askthemoneycoach.com. I wrote a piece basically saying, if you owe credit card debt or bills, here's what lenders want you to know and what they want you to do. So part of what she was emphasizing, she told me a couple of things, but one, she actually said that it's actually better to get online first as opposed to calling in terms of strategy and getting help and resolution. And she pointed out a couple things. One was that the volume, the sheer number of people who are asking for help and assistance means that it's going to be a lot rougher for you to get through on the phones. And then that might be frustrating or time consuming, or you might not get as quick a response or as expeditious an answer as you need. So you can get online is what she was suggesting first and foremost. It also means that you'll probably see online what they're offering, because many car companies, credit card issuers, banks, lenders, et cetera, private student loan companies, they are notifying their customers. They're like, we're aware there's a major, global pandemic going on. They understand that the economy has been ground to a halt here. And so either they will have some information up on a COVID-19 or coronavirus emergency relief page, and I'm just kind of calling it that, right? But they'll have some notification that says impacted by COVID-19 or resources or help for COVID-19, something to that effect, something that alerts you that, yes, we understand this is going on. And they may say flat out, here's what we're offering. So they'll say, you can skip this month's payment, or 90 days deferment, or call this number to speak to us about your situation. So they'll usually either, and most of them are saying to call because they want to get an understanding of what you actually need. Obviously, again, we're all different and not everybody needs, to skip a payment. Maybe somebody just needs a partial payment or a payment plan, or to pay a little bit later and change the due date, or to tack something on to the back end. The point to know, though, is that there is payment flexibility and that a lot of creditors are working with you. Even landlords, if you don't have a mortgage, for example, a lot of landlords are working with their tenants. Earl and I are in that boat. We are homeowners. We own our house here in the greater Houston area. And then we have 5 rental properties as well. And one of our tenants, he lost his job. First, he was kind of, furloughed, more or less. And then he just outright lost his job. And he let us know. He contacted us. First, he went through the property manager person we've been using. And then he called us directly. And we were like, we're good. We're like, hope, take care of you and your family, you and your wife, they have a kid. We're like, you know what, we'll work it out. Don't, you're good. Don't worry about it. Take care of your family. Good luck. Do you know what resources you need? And we didn't sweat him, because what we going to do,
Right.
And out, we're not going to, we don't want him to be feeling stressed out about it. So we're landlords. We went ahead and paid the mortgage, because there is a mortgage on the property. And, but he was not able to pay. But, not all, landlords, of course, are going to be, as sort of open as we are, but many, many, many will be. They're having flexibility. And I want folks to know that some categories of landlords, some lenders are required to be flexible right now. So there are, in most states in the country, first of all, there's federal, limitations and moratoriums on evictions, foreclosures, that kind of thing. And in addition to federal laws to help people from not getting kicked out, for at least 60 days, state governments and local municipalities as well, when they have shelter in place and sort of, lockdown orders, they're also preventing others from kicking out tenants and stuff like that. So you do have some flexibility. If you personally are a homeowner and you have a government sponsored or government insured loan, like an FHA loan, or Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac owns your mortgage, then you have the right to have that mortgage deferred for up to 6 months worth of payments and stuff like that. So you definitely can work out some deals.
Yeah, that's great to know. And I think just like you said, whether you're a tenant, that you can negotiate. And then some people think, well, my landlord has to pay, just like you said, has to cover their mortgage too. But if you're a landlord, remember that it's affecting. I think that's one thing that I won't say is good about this, but just as I keep saying to people, you're not in this alone. The whole world is figuring this out. And certainly, our whole country, everybody's trying to figure it out. So people know you're not necessarily trying to hustle this pandemic thing. This is real. This is happening. We all have to figure it out. Another thing that
Elayne, if I could say something, when you say,
yeah, of course,
that's kind of a really big difference for this downturn versus, say, the Great Recession. I don't know if you guys remember, but I got a long memory. And I remember going through 2007, 8, 9, 10, the mortgage meltdown. Remember the housing crisis, obviously what happened with the banks, et cetera. And, the quote unquote Wall Street bailouts, and what happened with the auto sector. So at the time, it was really contained, because it was just, people were saying, oh my gosh, they're bailing out the banks, or, they're bailing out Wall Street and stuff like that. And it was so much tied to the housing market and the housing industry. And of course, banks, lenders, credit unions, financial companies of all kinds were making loans for people who needed to or wanted and needed to buy properties in the sort of heyday, the 2006, 7, 8 kind of run up, where we saw prices just kind of went through the roof, and we had, so-called ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets, but you got a pulse. You could get a loan back then.
Right. Ninja, I haven't heard that.
They're not doing that obviously now. In fact,
yeah,
lending standards have tightened. But what the main point I wanted to make is that it was very sort of industry and kind of sector specific. But now with coronavirus, I mean, you have everybody affected, with the exception of a few, like maybe 4 industries or so. Certainly healthcare. Obviously, we pray for them healthcare workers. We need them, the doctors, the nurses, the EMTs,
raising the glass to them.
Specialists.
Yes.
Yes. You want to have a drink to them?
Yes, drink to them. Drink to the healthcare workers. Thank you.
Yes. I mean, and I mean, God bless them, because they're out there saving lives and putting their lives at risk for us. So, we're all super grateful for that. But healthcare as a whole, because you're always going to need doctors and people who can help heal the sick and, keep us all well. So that's an industry that's, it's not hurting. It's, there's a lot that is more needed than ever, right? Technology, mm-hmm. Everybody's online, everybody's, doing Zoom and Skype and using digital platforms and having, webinars and engaging at this level. So you find that there is a need for, greater need for technology more than ever. Kids are home from school. doing, remote learning, etc. So that is, an area that's kind of up. Food and food services, we all got to eat. So again, thank the Lord for all of those workers who are stocking the shelves, who are doing the deliveries, to those of us who are getting stuff delivered to our homes and apartments and whatnot. And then transportation, I guess that is still going strong, because again, we need to have stuff shuttled about, and we need the flow of goods to still take place. And that pipeline, we had a global supply chain for many things, and a lot of that, of course, has been shut down. So the stuff that we're manufacturing or making and producing here domestically, a lot of that is still able to be in transit with no problems. I'm saying that all to say that from an investing standpoint too, when people are looking at sectors and areas, some people have asked, where is there opportunity in the COVID-19 crisis, if they're so inclined, if you've already been investing, et cetera. Some of these areas have seen, they've held up a little better than, say, travel and transportation, or, the tourism side of travel, that kind of thing. So, but everybody is indeed affected at every level, which is very, very different than the Great Recession.
Right. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier that I want to touch on before we go into like small business loans and those things, federal student loans, you said there may be some things that people need to know about that, about what's possible. So I know, let's hear about that.
Sure. So there's great news on the student loan front for anybody who's been a borrower. We have 44 million Americans who owe college debt. And it's a big, chunk of change for a lot of people, because the average student loan payment is about $383 per month. So that's a sizable chunk out of a lot of people's budgets. Mm-hmm. Good news is that most student loan debt is actually federal debt. So there's $1.5 trillion with a T in student loan debt outstanding, and $1.3 trillion worth of it is federal student loan debt. The other 200 billion is private student loan debt, right? So the good news is that there's now a hiatus on student loan payments. So if you owe federal student loans, you don't have to make any payments for 6 months. No principal, no interest, no fees for April 2020, May, June, July, August, and September.
What? So, I haven't heard them talking about this. Come on, Lynnette, with this information. Go, keep going. I'm going to drink to that.
Okay. So, I'll have one to that too.
You have one too. Yeah, I haven't heard them talk about that. Or maybe I've missed it. Has anyone else? Please post in the Q&A. And Tyra, I see your question. I'm going to ask that. Okay, carry on.
So the student loan thing, like I said, that's really good news for people who are like, ooh, that's one less thing in the budget that they have to worry about covering, right? Y'all not gonna believe this one, because this I was like, wow, they really are, helping people with this at the federal level. So not only do you not have to make any student loan payments, but a lot of people go into default. First, about a third of all student loan borrowers are delinquent or in default status on their student loans, believe it or not. They just can't keep up with those payments. Well, default status is the more severe, of the non-payment status. It's more severe than delinquency, because when you've gone into default on a federal student loan, it typically means you haven't paid for about 9 months, about 270 days. So it takes a severe delinquency to get you into quote unquote default status. Well, one of the things that the government is doing for various classes of federal obligations, including student loans that are federal student loans and tax debt, federal tax debt with the IRS, they're halting all collections and payment activity for those folks as well, and even giving some refunds. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people have been talking about, oh, I'm getting a stimulus check, that little $1,200. Okay, that's fine. But if you were in default, and I'm not hoping that you were, but certainly I know a lot of people were in default. Trump declared coronavirus as a national disaster on March 13th, 2020. And what the federal government is now doing is they're going back and looking at anybody who went into default from March 13th onward, and they're refunding money to those people. So some of them got their wages garnished. They had, money tapped out of their bank accounts. They went into collection and had extra interest and fees tacked onto their obligations. And so what the government has now identified is that there are some 830,000 borrowers that they seized $1.8 billion from, and now they're returning all that money to those borrowers. So if you were one of those folks who had been in default and recently my wages got garnished or I had some money taken out of my bank account or stuff like that, you're going to get a check. I mean, they're going to give you some reprieve. I did the math on it. It's not going to work out exactly this way for everybody. Again, different people owe different amounts. But if you just spread that out, that 1.8 billion among 830,000 borrowers, that means the average person or the typical person will be getting about almost $2,200. So again, even more than that $1,200, so-called stimulus check. And I do think that a lot of people have to know, like, what was in the CARES package. That's one of the reasons why I really did a deep dive. I spent like 2 days reading through, and then I've been reading and rereading again the CARES package and all of the economic relief afforded in that $2.2 trillion bill, along with the prior two, because there were two measures that passed even before then, just to be able to aggregate it and tell folks, look, did you know you qualify for this? Because there are many, many levels of federal support right now.
Wow. And that's all on askthemoneycoach.com, right?
That's
on your website. So everybody, askthemoneycoach.com is Lynnette's website. Tons of, even before this, tons of great financial information, advice, support for every stage. So as you can see from this conversation, or I hope you can see, we're not just talking about one area, one particular sector, or just entrepreneurs or just individuals, trying to cover as much as possible, as long as I can I'm going to try to keep her drinking so she can stay longer.
There we go.
Oh, no, that's excellent. So Lynnette, just the last thing on the federal student loans, in that case, is that something that people need to contact also, or is that automatic as far as, like, should I, if I'm the person, should I reach out to my lender and just say, this is what I understand, to confirm?
Yes, I think that's a good idea, to be on the safe side. So again, they're supposed to put a pause on it automatically, but I do think it's a good idea. You reach out to your loan servicing company, and then you tell them, yep, I want to delay or put off or defer making payments. I'll take the 6-month reprieve if you need it. And then, you act accordingly. For those who have private student loans as well, though, I just want to make sure that we don't leave those folks out. Some people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I have private loans. What about me? So a lot of private lenders are also giving reprieve. They're having their own sort of forbearance, for lack of a better word, their own workout plans and their own deals. Again, you really do have to get online, see what they're offering, or just call the toll-free number that they typically provide and say, listen, I've been impacted by coronavirus. What options exist? That's really all you have to do, is ask what options are available. Because a lot of times, like I mentioned, that woman who I cited in the piece on that I wrote on askthemoneycoach.com, she was saying that's one of the things that actually helps people, because you call and you find out, oh, I didn't know they have this, or I see online they're offering this form of relief as well. And you might have just been thinking, like, can I pay on the 20th instead of the 10th, or you might've been thinking, I pay half now and half later. And they might say, you know what, don't pay anything. We're going to tack it on to the back end at the very end of your loan or something like that. And that might be more sustainable for you. And they might tell you the fine print, because I'm also telling people, you got to know the fine print. Because if it's a bill that you can't pay right now, a $300 bill, a $400 bill, and if they say, yeah, we'll let you defer the payments for 90 days, but either there's interest accruing, or they'll say something like, at the end of the 90 days, your balance is due. You need to know that. And it's all over the place. Each one has their own rules and guidelines, but clearly you want to make sure that whatever deal you agree to and whatever terms you commit to, that you're able to follow through and honor that on the back end. And frankly, I think that most people who are struggling, who need to get the reprieve, I would suggest you avoid payment plans where 90 days later, it's going to feel like a balloon payment of sort to you. Like, okay, I couldn't pay 1 month, but now all of a sudden in 2 or 3 months, I got to pay all 3 or 4 months. That's going to be a hardship for most folks. And even when people have the best of intentions, they're like, okay, I'm going to save, I'm put the money to the side or something. Life happens and stuff comes up, and we don't know how long this crisis is going to last. So, you just keep in mind that the terms of any deal that you strike really do matter.
Right. And Lavon says on here, yes, they just sent me a message about my student loan payments being suspended, looking to use the extra cash to pay down credit card debt in the meantime. Very good, Lavon. And Tyra, like I said, I'm going to get to your question about business, but Lynnette, I just want to talk to people who might have been laid off well, let's talk about, honestly, I just looked this up the other day, the difference between being laid off and being furloughed, and then are both eligible, for unemployment benefits. And then should those people be going for it? I know some folks feel like they don't want to go for unemployment, but then there are millions of people who have, obviously. So can we talk about that a little bit before getting into small businesses?
Sure. So first, overall, I would say that both are eligible. If you've been furloughed, if your employer has sort of put you on hiatus, you're not terminated or anything like that, but your services aren't needed right now. You may or may not get called back up to go to work, right? And different employers sort of handle the furlough process differently. But certainly, if you've been let go and you got a pink slip and the job has terminated you, that's a clear separation from the job. And in either status, it doesn't matter. Yes, you're both eligible for unemployment benefits. One of the things that happened under the CARES Act is that they expanded unemployment insurance in 3 key ways. And this is really crucial for people to know. For entrepreneurs and small business owners, anybody who's self-employed,
yes,
as well as gig economy workers, freelancers, independent contractors, pretty much anybody who gets a 1099, you are now eligible and can qualify for unemployment benefits. And that's totally new because it wasn't like that in the past. That's a new form of financial relief right now amid the coronavirus outbreak. So that's one way that they expanded unemployment. They widened the pool of applicants who qualify for this form of compensation. Secondly, they extended the term of unemployment. So unemployment benefits vary all across the country because it's a state and federal program. So it varies state by state. But on average, most people got about 26 weeks worth of unemployment benefits. And now they added 13 weeks. So you can get unemployment pay for as long as 39 weeks. So that's a longer time to collect the cash payments and then to tide you over. So that was the second way in which they expanded unemployment benefits. Then the third way is super helpful because it's flat out dollars, and the other two are helpful, of course, as well. But again, it's a state and federal program. And at the state level, again, because unemployment pay varies, it's all over the place. A Mississippi is going to be a $300 or $200 and something maximum pay per week. And then a Massachusetts is going to be, almost $800 maximum unemployment weekly benefit. So again, it varies a lot. But nationwide, because you've got, viewers all over, the average unemployment on a weekly basis from the state side is about $380. Okay. Now what they did is they added a federal component that's called federal unemployment or federal pandemic unemployment compensation. And the gist of it is that federal supplement to your state benefit is consistent for everybody. It's a $600 a week payment on top of your state benefit. So now you figure, okay, if I was getting $380 roughly, from my state, and now I get an extra $600 a week federal benefit, that's almost $1,000 a week. And again, that can provide a lot of money to keep folks afloat during the coronavirus crisis. So by all means, I think this is not the time to be too proud. This is not the time to wait. If you are already furloughed, reduced hours, your pay has been cut, even as a small business owner, if you're a self-employed person and your income is down dramatically, and certainly, obviously, if you've gotten a pink slip, then by all means, get online and go apply for your unemployment benefits.
And like you said, one of the things that I was so surprised about after, digging through things and seeing who's eligible for what, how it all works is, like you said, the fact that they've expanded it to self-employed professionals, which I am, and small business owners or independent contractors, the gig economy, all these other people who would have been completely left out of that and who might still have been impacted. I think 10% so far of my revenue has been impacted just because, people have to move things around and that kind of thing. So it's just like, okay, what can I do? What are the options? So at first I was thinking, well, unemployment doesn't apply to me. And then hearing just what you said about these other people who are now included in this group. So everyone, make sure you do your research. Like you said, it's the process. I think the coverage is the same for everybody, or the categories, right, around the nation, but the states handle it differently. I know in Georgia, it's like you have to apply for, I think you have to apply for regular unemployment first. And then if they see that you're self-employed, then they send you something else. This was actually where I saw they were like, we're still figuring this out. But
Yeah.
right now, this is what you have to do. It's like, okay.
And it has been tricky. I mean, a lot of states you get on their websites and you'll see, and I've heard from people all across the country from states, they're saying things like, our understanding is, or
right, right,
is, or we're waiting more federal guidance on this. And so it's like a patchwork of stuff. So I don't want to say, again, a blanket thing for all, but I want to give your audience certainly the high level view of how the process in general works. You get a state benefit. If you qualify for your state benefit, then yes, you're going to be eligible for some level, some level of benefit if they deem you eligible. And then that federal pandemic insurance is, on top of your state benefit.
Now, anyone, if you have any other questions, make sure to post them in the chat so we can answer them. I want to move to small business owners, Lynnette and Tyra here. Thank you for joining us, Tyra from New Jersey. Tyra said, I own a small business. I have no employees, but provide support to my clients via a network of subcontractors that I pay directly. I have applied for the SBA EIDL grant, but when filling out the questionnaire, there was no provision for businesses like mine. I have not yet received any approvals or denials at this time, so I'm waiting. Do you know any specific support for companies in my unique position? So she doesn't have employees, but she has subcontractors. I'm the same way, Tyra. Is the EIDL the grant that she should be going for, or should she? I know the SBA had a $10,000 grant, which I just heard today on the news. The SBA has run out of money. So tell us, Lynnette, what should Tyra and those of us like her do?
Yeah, so thank you, Tyra, for the question. It's a great one. And many of us are in, comparable situations to her. My husband, Earl, and I, we own a financial education company. It's an LLC. For federal tax purposes, it's an S Corp. And we actually have 2 employees, only us, him and myself. And then we pay a network of contractors as well, 1099 employees. So there are 2 different SBA programs, and this is really important especially for your audience, of course, Elayne, to understand, because the CARES Act authorized Congress to supply hundreds of billions of dollars in SBA loans and grants via 2 distinct and totally different programs. So first, there was the PPP loan program, and that's the one that's called the Paycheck Protection Program. It gives forgivable loans, or it provides forgivable loans to small business owners. And again, put in that category of small business owners, a lot of people who would not traditionally be eligible for an SBA loan. I'm talking independent workers, contractors, freelancers, 1099, gig economy folks, et cetera, right? As well as nonprofit groups, faith-based organizations, veterans organizations, tribal businesses. So they made a lot more entities and individuals eligible for SBA loan assistance. Usually they say 500 employees or less. That is the sort of, rough benchmark definition of a small business. But then they also said, okay, because of COVID, we're going to make certain exceptions. And so businesses that have a 72 in the front of their NAIC code, or NAICS, I think it is, code, dealing with hospitality or the hotel industry, restaurants, bars, things of that nature, they have a special kind of exemption for them. And they said, yeah, it might be Hilton hotels, and they might have thousands and thousands of employees all across the country. But they said, if your individual location, one location, say in Atlanta, as long as that one location has less than 500 employees, okay, you can apply for the PPP loan program there. So you can see why there was a huge rush on this program, and why, as of today, the funds ran out.
Right.
And so many small business owners, yours truly included, were real salty about that.
I know. I mean, yeah. Okay. Sorry. I just was like, what? That was like a few days. They're going to have to do more.
It's been 13 days total since, the program rolled out on April the 3rd. And then small business owners like myself were able to apply, effective April the 3rd. I actually put my application in on that Monday, April the 6th. And then today I got a notice from my bank. They asked me for some information, and I was like, you waited 10 days to ask me for something that was so basic and trifling. And like, you don't see this in my documentation that I already supplied you. So I was real upset and salty about it. And they've pretty much told us that if you didn't already get approved or at least get the registration, as they call it, from the SBA, it's unlikely that your loan is going to be funded this time around. So one of the things I want your audience to understand, though, is why there was such a big rush. The loan is forgivable. So the loan is up to $10 million. And again, most people, organizations, not going to qualify anywhere near that. They don't need that. And that's not, what was required. But they take your monthly payroll and they multiply it by 2.5. And that is what determines your maximum loan size. So if your monthly payroll, even if it's just for you as a small business owner, a side hustle or something, if you made $60,000 in income and you had your 1099s to show it and you had your paperwork together, you could have applied based on $60,000 in your side hustle money, and that would be $5,000 a month if you average it out. 60 divided by 12 months in a year is $5,000 a month. And then they would say, okay, times 2.5. So they would say 12.5. You qualify for a forgivable loan of $12,500. So some people were like, well, what's the catch? And yeah, there is kind of a catch. You have to use the money for payroll purposes. 75% of the funds that you receive have to be put towards payroll. They want you to keep workers afloat, yourself if necessary, but of course others who might be on your payroll. So her question, she was asking about 1099 employees. We had the same question. I sat on the phone and went back and forth with my accountant and many other accountants to really get clarity around this. And then they finally issued guidance about it as well. And essentially they said, if you were paying 1099 contractors, no, that doesn't count for their definition of payroll. And the reason is they were saying, well, those same 1099 contractors can claim that same income as their source of being able to get the PPP loan. So they didn't want to kind of have a double dip there. So after we got past that, I was like, fine, whatever, we can't claim that. Okay, that's fine. We'll just claim for my salary. I have like I said, an S Corp. So the income is divided. A chunk is K1 or dividend income. And then the other half, we do pay ourselves a salary. We are both owners of the company and employees of the company. So we do pay ourselves a salary, each of us. And so we said, okay, we'll make it based on our W-2 wages from what we pay ourselves. So I'm in limbo with a whole bunch of other folks, but that PPP loan program, yes, it's tapped out. 13 days only, $349 billion gone like that. And so the loan terms for them, if you put 75% towards payroll and then your other 25% can be put towards mortgage interest, rent or lease payments for your business, and utilities. And if you, did the, apportion those expenses accordingly, according to the guidelines and the rules, and if you maintained headcount and didn't slash people's pay, then they would say you maintain your spending levels for the business on the payroll and those other expenses that I mentioned for 8 weeks after you receive the loan. And then you go back and you apply and say, okay, here's my receipts. I put it towards payroll, even if it was paying yourself. And I put it towards, mortgage interest for the business. If I have a home-based business, or the rent on the place that I rent for my business or whatever, and my utilities, here's my receipts. Then you're supposed to be able to get loan forgiveness. The amount that isn't forgiven is, it has a 2-year term and a super low 1% interest rate. So there you have it. Congress has been asked, and by Secretary Mnuchin, and the Dems and the Republicans are debating right now, replenishing the PPP loan program. Secretary Mnuchin has asked for $250 billion more to fund into the program. And I think it's actually going to happen in not too distant future. They both want to get this done. The Democrats are asking for more for other areas. They're saying, first, we want to make sure minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses are earmarked and they get their piece of the pie. They're also asking for hospitals to shore up a little bit more for them to protect healthcare workers and to give aid to state governments as well, because their tax revenues have been down, and they're trying to work it out now. And I think that they will come. I don't know when it's going to happen. Nobody has a crystal ball, but that PPP loan program, it's like, most people did not get it. We have 30 million small business owners in America. They funded 1.66 million loan applicants, and the money ran out. The EIDL that she was talking about refers to an economic injury disaster loan. With a PPP loan program, you had to go directly through lenders. You went through banks, credit unions, community banks, and fintech companies in order to get that funding.
And just to clarify for the PPP, because I actually didn't know what you just said, that independent contractors and those individuals were eligible when it existed, was eligible for that too. I thought that was just if you had employees.
No.
So that's news to me. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So everyone be aware of that when it does come back.
You can sole proprietor and qualify.
Right, okay.
Like I said, you could be a church, you could be a faith-based group, you could be a nonprofit. They've really expanded the rules. And I was kind of like, y'all didn't expect all these, you made
exactly right
people eligible. You didn't think that people were going to flock to this and
right. Okay, so EIDL.
Underestimated, yes. So the EIDL program is, in a nutshell, a non-forgivable loan program up to $2 million in funding in terms of the cap. That's what they originally said. And interest rate of 3.75% for for-profit entities and 2.75% for nonprofits, 30-year term. The part that made this really attractive to a lot of people was that $10,000 grant that they kept talking about. So with an EIDL, if you applied, if you said, yes, coronavirus has harmed my business, it's been a disaster for me, I've been economically injured, and then you applied, upon successful completion, you're able to request and to say, yes, I would like an advance on this loan, and the advance is in the form of a grant. Well, there's some fine print, some real serious fine print on that. Because what they didn't say until just a couple days ago, they were like, well, yeah, I know we said $10,000 grant, but we're going to ration this. And we're going to do it on a per employee basis. So you can get $1,000 per employee on your payroll. And again, not counting the 1099 contractors you're paying. So if you're a sole proprietor, then that means you can get $1,000 just for you yourself. If you're a kind of mom and pop business or a dynamic duo like Earl and I, and we did not apply for an EIDL, but we would have been able to apply for a economic injury disaster loan and request a grant, but it would have been $2,000 for just him and I as employees. So a lot of people were like, really? You were acting like it was $10,000 worth of grants. For
exactly, right.
That's the fine print, And they also said you would get it in 3 days. So they said, regardless, after you successfully complete the loan application, that's all you have to do is fully complete the loan application. Then you request the grant. And then it's supposed to be, by law, they put it in there to say you're going to get it in 3 days. So many people said that did not happen. They did not get it in 3 days. But nonetheless, that program is on the cusp of also running out of money. Probably by tomorrow, it'll be out. And they did about 17 or so billion for that program, 10 or 17 billion. I forget off the top of my head which one it was now. All the numbers are running together, but they're running out for that one too. So they might have to have an infusion there and additional congressional appropriations to be utilized to replenish the EIDL program as well.
So do you think then, and I see your question, Anthony, I'm going to ask your question, and Angela as well, and Tiaya, but do you think then, Lynnette, for the small business owners listening, or and when we say small business now, we're talking about small business, sole proprietors, all those other categories you mentioned, should we still even apply for those programs? We shouldn't throw our hands up. Sometimes our folks are like, oh, well, they ran out of money, so forget it. Do you think we should still go ahead and apply anyway?
Well, one of the things that I did today, and I was talking to my sister on the phone about this today. My sister owns a healthcare company in your neck of the woods. She's in the Atlanta area. And she does very well, under normal circumstances, and she's still, doing well. However, of course, her business has been affected to the extent that she is eligible also for, if she decided to do either one. So she decided to apply for a PPP loan program as well. And she was notified by her lender today. She had done it, again, same as me, almost 2 weeks ago, and blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, oh, there's something that, it's in the queue. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute, so she's real upset and salty on her end too. So she was asking me, do you think I should just go to somebody else? Do you think I should do something, about what to do? And so I actually created an article today that pretty much said, PPP loan program, the money ran out. Here are your options. And I identified 7 different options and other sources of funding and other things that people could do if they were evaluating their options to say, look, I really want to keep my business afloat. Because some people, they might be like, I'm done. I've seen online, Reuters and other reporting, that some people are saying, I can't, March was rough for them, and April has already been rough for them, and they didn't have the cash flow, and they're kind of thrown in the towel. Some businesses are folding, especially product-oriented businesses as opposed to service-based businesses. Some people's businesses that rely on a crowd or people gathering, et cetera, of course, they've been, much harder hit. Some people who aren't able to as quickly pivot and go to digital and to do things online, et cetera, they've taken a huge hit. So some people might say, I'm throwing in a towel, I'm folding up my business, I'm closing up shop, I'm filing bankruptcy. They're going to those extremes. And it's unfortunate because none of this was through any fault of their own.
Right.
The piece that I wrote, though, was for those of us who want to hang in there, for people who say, I'm trying to keep my business afloat and I'm going to keep going. And it was 7 different options. And yes, one of them was to wait and to keep your loan application on file with your existing lender, whether you went through a bank, a credit union, a fintech company, because it is likely, we don't know when, but I do think that it's likely, and they're saying on Capitol Hill that it's likely that they are going to supply additional funding for the PPP loan program. Probably the same will be done for EIDL as well. But certainly most of the interest was in the PPP loan program, kind of first and foremost. So that is one strategy. There's a whole host of other things. You might think about tapping your 401k or your retirement assets. They've actually loosened the rules around that so that now you can take a loan of up to $100,000 from your IRA or your 401k and with no tax.
Without penalty.
Mm-hmm. And without taxes, no penalty and no taxes. If you take a distribution, normally you have to be age 59 and a half, or you will get that penalty that you mentioned. Uncle Sam will hit you with a 10% penalty. They've waived that as well. So again, if you take a straight distribution from your 401k or your IRA, et cetera, then you do have to pay ordinary income taxes on it, but they let you stretch it out to pay that back over 3 years. And they will not hit you with that 10% penalty. So some people might say, I need this money to stay afloat, personally, business-wise, et cetera. I am going to tap my resources that I have in my retirement savings. Others might lean on their credit cards, their lines of credit. Some might tap home equity. Some might do, serious negotiating with their creditors and vendors, et cetera, to be able to stay afloat and try to hold the tide for a little bit longer. In the hopes that we kind of get through this and get to, a month or 2 more viability. If we can stay on lockdown, get everybody healthy and safe, and start to, reduce the number of infections that we have in terms of coronavirus, and certainly the disease itself, COVID-19, flatten that curve. The sooner we all kind of address the healthcare issues, then the sooner we can all kind of get back to work and back to business.
Right. Now, Tiaya says, thank you for this information, especially about entrepreneurs and small business owners. See, aren't you all glad Lynnette is here? I'm so happy. And then
I feel you. I understand. Totally.
I know. And then Anthony Smith says, for business owners, can they receive unemployment if their sales cut down to 80%? It sounds like you're saying, yes, you should apply, right?
So yes. Now, again, there's some nuances here. I don't know what state he's in and all that, obviously. But first, as a business owner, are you an employee? Are you on salary? Because if you pay yourself via W-2, then, and your income is down, then yes, you will likely qualify. But of course, it depends on what your state says in terms of qualification. Some are saying 20% or 25% drop or more, you're going to qualify. And even if you qualify for partial, they would let you get some benefit, even if it's not the maximum or whatever. So you really have to kind of know what your state says. Another resource on my site, and I'm not just trying to tell it because this is all
no, please. Yes, yes, no, absolutely. AskTheMoneyCoach.com. I will be all up in it.
Content around this. I've been like, right, creating videos. But one of the things that I did, if you go to AskTheMoneyCoach.com and you type in, COVID and unemployment, several articles will pop up. And one of them is where I show you, I have a list, I have a chart for the maximum of what the maximum unemployment benefit is in every single state. And I also give you a list. So no matter what state you're in, I give you the list of the website and the phone number for each and every unemployment office. And it's usually through the Department of Labor, but it's of course, your state office. So you can just go in there and find, okay, Georgia, Michigan, California, New York, wherever you happen to be, Texas, find your state on that. And I give you the link to go right there. And then you'll be able to click through and then go see what they're saying in terms of unemployment, compensation and eligibility.
Excellent. So for Angela, she says, was there a separate PPP application for 1099s versus small business?
No. So there was only one. Well, let me qualify that. There were different versions of the PPP loan application. And I was like, because I was, again, going through this with my accountant and others, version 1 came out, then version 2, then they changed it version 3. And I'm like, can you guys get this together?
Right.
So everybody had the same information and the same application. What I can tell you is that banks could provide their own, the SBA put out their application. And that's what I mean by, and via the SBA and Treasury, they were working together to create a uniform application. And they had modifications to that. And over, the days and weeks, it changed. But it was, ever so slight little changes here and there, but some significant. So the banks, though, did have the right, again, according to the CARES Act, they could create their own sort of application or intake form. Most of them sort of adhered to the same general form that the SBA and Treasury created. But the banks did have the right to create their own form. Now, was it one that was separate for the 1099 folks versus the
small business owners
who are small business owners? No, they were saying it's uniform in terms of what the SBA created, one application for everybody. And your qualifications and standards were different as a 1099 contractor versus somebody who's a small business owner. They gave you the definition of payroll for employees, for a small business owner who has employees. Then they said, now separately, if you're an independent contractor, here's the documentation that you would need, et cetera. And here's what information is included for you to establish payroll for you as a 1099 or independent contractor.
Mm-hmm. And Trey Anthony says, hey, Trey, I didn't apply for the small business loan and now the money is gone. As a small business owner with contractors, is it best for me to apply for unemployment? As we've been talking about, I'm mainly in the gig economy.
So yes, gig economy workers do qualify now for unemployment. And I do think it's worth it for people to seek the information from their state and double check their eligibility. Again, in the past, this wouldn't have even been a question. It was just like, no, you don't qualify.
No, right.
They realized that about 40% of workers at some level are gig economy workers. So many people have a side hustle, part-time job, freelancing, contracting, and do various forms of work that earn them money and then for which they get a 1099. So they were expansive in thinking about those folks as well and including them in the definition of who qualifies for unemployment insurance. Again, Democrats fought really hard for that, to be able to widen the scope of unemployment insurance in those three ways: making more people eligible, extending the term from 26 to 39 weeks, and then adding a federal pay component of $600 per week on top of your state benefit. So I'm like, thank you. I know it takes a little longer than we might want it to sometimes, but you know what? Let's protect all of us, and let's, look out for the little guy as well. So I'm like, kudos that they did it that way.
Mm-hmm. So do you have 5 more minutes, Lynnette?
Yes.
It's not okay. It's I want to be conscious of your time. I know you're booked and busy. So anyone, if you have any other questions, please, again, post them in the Q&A. Thank you all so much for participating. Ask your questions while we have Lynnette here, and while she's sipping and I'm sipping. Let's keep asking those questions. You need some more. So
this is my limit, so that's one. But
I know. Oh, you're like me. I'm a lightweight. I'm such a lightweight. Yeah. Such a lightweight.
Like,
so again,
I'll be like,
I know. So anybody that, again, ask any other questions. Thank you all so much. So Lynnette, if you could give us then, if there were one piece of advice that you just wanted to make sure the folks on the call know, what would be that piece of advice that you'd want to share with us at this time about our money or about anything?
So I guess I would say 2 or 3 things. One, ask for help if you need it. Now is not the time to keep, your struggles to yourself. Just be honest and candid. They say a closed mouth don't get fed. So you really do have to ask for help. I also think it's important to keep a healthy perspective. Yes, we all want to get paid. We want to earn, we want our livelihood to be restored. But I think that part of what this pandemic has shown us is other things that matter and other things that are important. And so even though my daughter is like, oh God, I can't wait to go back to school, my 14-year-old, I've enjoyed having her here with us during the day. We're trying to juggle and make sure and look after her assignments and make sure she's online and logging in and doing her tests and everything else. And it's a juggling act. But I kind of feel like some of this is like, okay, stop, like slow your roll a little bit, recognize what's important. Get on FaceTime, text with your family, call, tell somebody that you love them. We should be more connected, and we're using technology to connect right now. And one of the things that I'm sharing with certainly my audience, but with others, is that we're separate, but we're not alone. We really are in this all together. And a lot of people are grappling with a whole host of issues, loneliness, depression, and they're feeling like, they're in the struggle by themselves. And so I want to be cognizant that, we actually have a lot of privilege. Even for folks, it's easy for us to, jump on Zoom and to just do something like this, but not everybody has a laptop or, technology or access. Some folks relied on going to the library, or going to the coffee shop for public Wi-Fi, et cetera. And now they can't. So we should be grateful too. So those would be some of the things that I would highlight to understand. Yes, the money matters. And of course, that's my brand in my career, and that's what I do professionally. But anybody who knows me personally knows that, what's first for me is that man sitting in the other room over there. Okay.
I know that's right. I know that everybody knows that.
I'm trying to be happy and healthy. And if we had to have, a 1-bedroom apartment and $400, a month, and I don't want to be that low, but, but I'm gonna be happy. As long as we're good, then I'm like, okay, I'm good. So put it in perspective, just put it all in perspective, and, and just really do reflect on the things that you have and that you can and should be grateful for as well.
Amen. I know that's right. Beautiful. Now, Michelle did ask one other question for unemployment. She filed for unemployment, but received a message saying that you cannot apply for the PUA until you apply for unemployment insurance. I think that's the case here in Georgia too. Like I said, I was looking it up last night, and I think you have to apply for regular unemployment first, and they tell you can't, and then you apply for self-employed. I don't know. But she said if you're eligible for UI, you are not eligible for PUA. Is that the case?
So, I've been hearing more from people who are having this same issue. And I think what some states are doing in a nutshell is, remember, that federal component comes along once you qualify for the state benefit. Like, you can't just get the federal $600 a week right off the bat. you have to first be deemed eligible for some level of unemployment, even if it's a partial from what your state would pay. And then you get the pandemic unemployment compensation on top of that. So I think that's kind of what she's reflecting, or what the notice might have said. And I think that some states may have on their website an opportunity to do it in a couple of different ways. Like a friend of mine, I walked her through New York. She lives in New Jersey, but she works in New York. She did until March 20th. And she commuted every day. So she had to file in the state of New York. And it was one, system. But I do want folks to know that these are two separate payments, and the CARES Act gave states the right to handle it however they wanted to. In a nutshell, they said you can send out two separate payments as long as it goes out the same week. If you want to send the state payment and then the federal payment separately, you can do that. Or you can combine the two and send out one payment to folks. So I think some states who are just having it separate, like, okay, we're going to send you the state benefit, and then we'll send you the federal benefit. I think there's like a little first this, then that kind of thing going on. And it kind of does make sense. But I would say get online. I'm certainly not the authority on that. I'm just giving you high level knowledge that if you qualify for that state-based unemployment compensation, there is this federal component that complements or supplements it as well. But do go by the exact rules and guidelines that whatever they tell you to do, follow the rules and just be persistent about it. When I helped my friend, we were online for an hour and 45 minutes. She got kicked off like 8 times.
Wow.
It crashed, it timed her out. It was doing all kind of crazy things. She was so frustrated. And I was frustrated with her. But then in the end, she was like, yes, oh, it worked. Good. She was happy because she's about to get about $1,000 a week and she needs that money, So, that's just on the real. You have to be persistent, unfortunately, because a lot of people are in the process of applying too.
And Anthony said, any tips on negotiating rent with your landlord or commercial property, i.e. a storefront? Would that be sort of the same as you told us earlier of giving a call and having the conversation about it? Yeah,
it really is going to be about calling and letting them know. I would suggest, first of all, I've told everybody that anything that you can afford to pay, I think that you should. You want to preserve your credit rating, and part of the CARES Act, just so you won't worry too much about that either, they've said that if creditors or lenders make any kind of a modification for you, any kind of what they called an accommodation, payment plan, partial payment, skip a payment, anything like that, then they can't report you to the credit bureaus. So they're not going to be hurting your credit. They're supposed to report you as current. Now, I won't get into the long, the fine print around that, because there's some issues going on at the state level around it. But in general, they're not supposed to do that. So yes, you need to get on the phone. You need to contact your landlord or whoever you have a lease with, if it's for a commercial property, et cetera, and explain the situation to them and let them know what you can do. So first ask them what options exist, and then be prepared to say, here's what I can do. I can pay this amount right now, or, at X point, I'll be able to pay the whole thing, or whatever it is that would be comfortable and reasonable for you to do. Just let them know, and then say, is this acceptable to you right now, given the COVID-19 crisis, and then kind of put your offer or your proposal on the table for what you think you need to be able to do.
And last question, Lynnette, before I let you go, what do you have any thoughts on the best way to set up your business? I don't know if you consider this your area to talk about, because I know you mentioned you have an S corp, some of us sole proprietorship, some of us LLC, which is what I have, and all these different forms of businesses that we can take. Are there benefits to, especially during this time? I mean, maybe no one's going to change the structure of their business right now, but are there things that we should think about for the future? Because I don't know about you all, I've been thinking a lot more about my business, right? How it's structured, how, if things like this happen in the future, God forbid, but just anything just to make sure that you're in a position where you can sustain and that you're set up in the proper way. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. So this is a big question. People write books about this, about business formation structures. Do you have a sole proprietorship? Do you have an LLC? Do you incorporate? Do you have an S corp? Do you have a partnership? There's many different forms or structures that your business can take. What I would say is that one of the things that this emergency has taught us is that the United States is a country that's governed by the tax code and by lawyers. I mean, at the end of the day. And what gets rewarded from a financial standpoint are those who invest and those who create economic activity. So what do I mean by invest? Investing in a business, starting your own company, investing in the stock market, investing in real estate. The tax code favors all of those things dramatically. If you're a W-2 employee, if you're a worker in corporate America, not to say that there won't be some benefits and some advantages, some tax perks, et cetera, for you, but by far and away, the tax code rewards those who are investors and owners way more than employees. So I think that just from a standpoint of business opportunity, taxes, again, emergencies like this, like just knowing that they made some people eligible, great, because the Democrats fought for it and they expanded the pool of people, for example, who could seek SBA loans or grants. But under normal conditions, no, you wouldn't be able to. So I do think having a business that's properly either registered with your corporate offices in the state in which you live and do business, et cetera. It doesn't have to be that you're incorporated. You need to know, like, what is the thing that you're most seeking to do. Some people who have real estate businesses prefer the LLC format, a limited liability company. They want a high level of protection. They don't want somebody to come after their assets. They want to be able to steer away potential lawsuits and things of that nature. For my purposes, the reason that I, about maybe 8, 10, almost 10 years ago, and I've had my business for 17 years, moved to an S Corp structure is that it definitely helps you a lot with self-employment taxes. And so most people who are filing a Schedule C, they're getting killed by self-employment taxes. So I started researching. I was like, I want to know what Romney did. You know, Mitt Romney.
Right. I know that's right.
Did.
Yeah.
I want to know what all these players did. And they all had S Corps. And so I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I researched. I found this accountant who had, you know, an amazing body of information online and was, you know, skilled and really specialized in S Corps. I interviewed different ones, and then I was like, oh yeah, this is the guy I'm hiring. And then that became my accountant, and I still have him to this day. So, you know, you have to know like what your outcome and your objectives rather are. But I do think some formats are more beneficial than others, and certainly more than, say, a sole proprietor, where you're kind of, you know, the least level of protection and kind of formality at that level. So I would say it's something to look into.
Excellent. And I'm sure you probably have this kind of information on askthemoneycoach.com too, right?
Yes, I have some stuff on small business and entrepreneurship and all that as well. We have about 1,600 plus articles on askthemoneycoach.com. So, and then, you know, all of our video content is on moneycoachuniversity.com as well. It's courses, you know, video-based. That's our video-based platform. So people who want to think about taking courses, I have a life insurance, a home ownership class, a class on negotiating for women. And there's both free and paid courses on there. I have a budgeting class. I have credit courses, multiple credit courses, stuff on debt, getting out of debt. So all that good stuff, video-based. It's basically me on camera, talking, teaching, doing my coaching, just kind of like what we're doing here. But it's video-based and it's on demand, so people can get it anytime they want, you know, 24/7 access.
I love that. So that's moneycoachuniversity.com.
Correct.
Excellent. So askthemoneycoach.com, everyone, moneycoachuniversity.com. That's where you can find the wonderful Lynnette Khalfani-Cox. As you can see, she is a wealth of information. If I didn't respect her time, I'd try to keep her on here as long as possible. There's just so many questions, so many things to think through, but thank you for giving us not only the updates, but the in the moment things that are happening, you know, that have happened, as we said, even as of today. And everyone just, I would say, make sure you, as much as possible, don't go crazy on the news, because I don't think that's healthy, but stay informed and check your state and see what's possible. Like I said, just digging in and finding, oh, I didn't even know I would be eligible for that, and try it. There's certainly no shame in it. You know, there's no need for trying to be prideful to prove you can make it without this. This is a global pandemic, and we're all trying to figure it out. And I don't know if the government will ever be this generous again. They're trying to figure it out too. And I think this has just really shown us I don't know about you, Lynnette. I mean, certainly things that this opportunity to pause, figuring out what's important, but also how important small businesses are to this country. So whether you're working and have a side hustle or, whatever that looks like for you, it just is just a reminder of where the opportunities are, or the importance of small business owners, whatever size, having a place in this economy. It's not all the big guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's, most of us, are employed by small businesses. So it's a huge part of the economy, and it really does make a difference. So, and I do think you're right about, will we ever see, the government being this generous? Probably not. I mean, this is, I hope, a once in a lifetime event in our lifetime. If you think back to, not that we were there, but 1918, the flu,
right, Spanish flu
years ago, and so it's kind of like, please let us not see this again. But we have to be prepared, and we're going to be, doing some advocacy and making sure our government really is prepared. Certainly after November, at least, we should be voting also to make sure that our interests are represented, and that we have leaders that will look after us and will, do the right things that will help not only small businesses grow, but that will help to eliminate a lot of the structural inequality in this country. Because I think that the coronavirus crisis has really laid bare a lot of income disparities, a lot of the structural inequality in terms of access to healthcare, even the fact that, these small business loans that were doled out definitely followed a pattern in terms of who was at the front of the line. The Wall Street Journal had a piece today about Ruth Chris Steakhouse, and about how because it's a chain and, franchise, two of their, even though they had, thousands and thousands of employees, again, I explained those rules, how franchises could, as long as each location had under 500 employees, they could apply. And the journal said they had something like, I think they had, and I could be mistaken, but something like 428 million in profit last year for this restaurant chain. And so long story short, they applied on April the 3rd, two of the restaurants, for $10 million loans, PPP loans, these two restaurants. They both got the 10 million. And they were funded, they applied on Friday, April the 3rd, and then they were funded on Tuesday, April the 7th. Now that's right there.
That is some access. And that's the thing, just like you said, the bigger companies or people who, I can't say they don't need it, but there's other small businesses that need that money, but these bigger companies jump the front of the line.
Yeah. So, I mean, even the fact that, a lot of people were mad that many lenders said, okay, we're only going to deal with our customers first. And people were real salty. They were like, wait a minute now. You say I can't just come up and apply. Or some people were like, I had a checking account with you. I had a savings account. I've been here for 10, 15 years. And you tell me now I don't qualify. I'm not, a good enough customer. And different banks, again, had different rules about who they were going to kind of put to the front of the line. And some of it was about a business banking relationship, or having a business line of credit, or having a business checking account. And again, I've been telling people that I do understand in large part, part of why banks did that is they have to abide by a number of federal rules. They have to adhere to something called the Know Your Customer rule. And they want to help eliminate fraud and just random people coming in. Not that any of us would be trying to pull fraud and defraud the SBA or fraudulently get money out of the PPP loan program, but just in terms of less friction in the system and doing a more seamless loan. They thought we can quickly put through our customers. We already know them. We have their EINs. We know their checking account history. We've been doing business with them. We know they're legitimate. We have the person's driver's license on tap here. We've identified them. So it in theory should have been a lot faster, but it's just that the volume of applicants overwhelmed, I think, a lot of institutions. I certainly was, like I said, very salty. The bank that I applied through had a very long banking history with, 20, 25 years plus, over 250,000 in assets there, business banking relationships, business line of credit, business credit cards, multiple accounts there. And I have a good relationship with the branch manager. etc. They were responsive to me. I applied, and still it was like nothing, like I got that email this morning at 1:00 in the morning, literally. I just happened to get up and go use the bathroom, at about 5:00 in the morning. And I was like, what is this? I checked my email and I saw, it said, you're basically your PPP loan application. We need a document. And I was like, and the document they asked for was crazy. It was them saying, we need to confirm that you have 2 employees. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
And that came from the SBA or from the bank?
No, that came from the bank. Remember,
oh, wow.
the loan program. And this was corporate. This wasn't like my branch manager or who knows me and
right.
been knowing me for years and, nothing like that. But it just showed me that the volume they were kicking through, and I don't even know what they saw or what they didn't see that was apparent in the first set of paperwork that I gave them, but I was just like, really, we're saying you can look at our accounts, first of all, and see who's on the 2 accounts. We're both employees of the, and I gave you paperwork saying this, so it was disappointing to say the least. And no, I wasn't skipping to the front of anybody's line. I can tell you that, even with, reasonable assets there and banking relationship and all that good stuff. And still nothing. So there's tears, believe me, there's tears of folks who will get more access. And even when I was going through it, I was telling Earl, I said, wow, because my accountant worked with me. He created work papers for me around the PPP loan program. We went, we had our stuff from ADP, payroll and stuff. He got it all together for me. And I felt privileged. Even I was like, ooh, thank goodness for my accountant. Thank goodness for ADP. And because if you just like don't even have the basics together, you got to piece it all together. And then to just figure out their definition of payroll, because they made it complicated. It wasn't like just what's your salary. It was like group health insurance, retirement stuff in there, taxes paid by the employer. So they had different elements, some things not included, some things included. They specifically excluded anything you paid to 1099 contractors. So I was like, look, here, you guys handle this and tell me what, work it up and tell me what the number is. So he did, and I was like, I was happy to have a really responsive accountant and everything. And I was just thinking, God, the average person, just looking at these 8 or 10 things that they said, this is what's included and here's what's excluded. I didn't even want to figure that out and say, okay, well, what this health insurance premiums, but not like my other insurance, not like all my business insurance, that doesn't count. Okay, no, okay, fine. And, just a lot of stuff that I was thinking, wow, if you didn't have professionals working with you already, or banks and lenders themselves, because they know their customers, trust and believe. Like my sister, her bank came to her and said, oh, you want to do a PPP loan? Because they know her history, her thing and everything. And she still got, fell through the cracks. And hers is 5 times my level. Okay. So it's, it tells you something about this system and this process. And that kind of stuff does make me think, wow, just think about what the average person who, kind of doesn't know, have the same amount of information or access to professionals to help them, et cetera. It's really rough for them.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that, because I just want to tell everyone one last thing that I actually heard today, just speaking to exactly what you just talked about, like for those who don't have an accountant to go through everything for them or to help you through the process, or the kind of relationship, even if you've been with the bank for a while, you might not have a certain level of assets or just have that kind of relationship with your banker. So today I heard Robert, is it Robert Smith, the billionaire? Black man billionaire Robert Smith, right? He was on the Breakfast Club, and I happened to watch his interview talking about helping small businesses. And he said he has, what's that?
I said, wow, okay.
Yeah. I happened to see it today when I was looking up video on something, and I was like, oh, let me see what he's talking about. He said one of his companies has a site called QuickBase. I think it's quickbase.com. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a site that helps you fill out the SBA application.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So his whole thing, from what he said on the show, is about helping small business owners, especially in the Black and brown communities, people who don't have access or who might feel overwhelmed, as we all feel overwhelmed just in general right now. Everything's so overwhelming. But they'll help you go through the application and figure out what you're supposed to do. So I'm not necessarily endorsing the site, but when I heard that, I literally wrote it down to talk about during this conversation to mention, just because, that could be an option. So for any of you if you're feeling overwhelmed or, scared or whatever, or if you just want some help, as Lynnette said, if you don't have access to an accountant or all those things set up just yet, don't let it stop you. We're going to figure this out. Go to askthemoneycoach.com and all the Lynnette's information, moneycoachuniversity.com, also quickbase.com, to find out more about all these resources that might be out there. And I think that's just been my thing, Lynnette, just finding as many resources as possible and see what people are saying, right? Reading about stuff. So that could be another option. And I'll make sure when I send out the replay for this for everyone, I'll put some of these links. I'll put all of these links in the information there. But Lynnette, oh my goodness. Raising the glass. Did you finish? Yours is empty. Raising the glass to you.
I shall.
There you go. Yes, replenish for one more sip. Thank you so much. I love you and appreciate you. You are so awesome.
Earl and I are both, I hope this doesn't sound like, in a patronizing way, but we're proud of you. We're so super happy for you. And we just have witnessed your growth over the years, your passion and your energy, your consistency, the way you stick with it, the way you always bring positive energy, and the way you always try to build up others. And so my prayer and blessing for you is that you continue to enjoy the life that you're creating, continue to have abundance, and that you get all the blessings that you really do, really, really and truly do, Elayne, so richly deserve. So I'm thankful to be on with you today, and I'm appreciative of that. And you can call upon me anytime, and I'll be there.
Thank you so much. You're about to make me weepy, tipsy and weepy. No, thank you so much. I received that. I appreciate that. And, I will tell everyone on here, Lynnette has been there for me when I was in personal financial trouble, thinking about, when was I in New York at the time? I think I was in New York. Yeah, it was before my move. I was trying to decide what to do about my business, what to do, just trying to figure out what to do. And I called Lynnette, and Lynnette gave me some very great sound advice. So she is a woman of her word, very true, very supportive. I appreciate you always have. I think since our Black Enterprise days, when I was talking to you then, I think that's when we first started working together. I was at Black Enterprise, and that was, as she is now, one of our experts, right? So thank you so much. I'm going to call you after this, actually, if you don't have another appointment to chat with you and Earl. But thank you again. I appreciate you so much. And everyone, again, this replay will be available. It'll be on winddownconversations.com on YouTube. And I'll send out the replay and have those links there. And just know that, for all of you, that you are not alone. We are all figuring this out together. And there's resources like askthemoneycoach.com, moneycoachuniversity.com, and all the other things that we mentioned for you to get some support. So Lynnette, thank you so much. I'm going to call you, girl.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Bye.